Hello dear students, I welcome you all in today's lecture, that is Political Culture, its meaning and types. The objectives of the topic are to make students able to understand what political culture is. Second, to provide an understanding how political culture is important to make a comparative study of political systems. Third, to understand the role of attitudes, beliefs, and values of people have in formulating the nation's political culture. To know how do individuals and groups acquire their political attitudes and values. To provide an analysis of different types of political cultures in different societies. Now, dear students, let us start with the introduction. The cultural thrust in comparative politics, conspicuously prominent during the 1960s, emanated from traditional work on culture in anthropology, socialization and small group studies in sociology and personal studies in psychology. The concept of political culture was related to nations or national cultures. In this sense, political culture represented a sort of recasting of the older nations of national character. Political culture is related to the systems as well. Political culture consisted of beliefs, symbols and values that define situations in which political action occurs. Culture in its broadest sense is the way of life of people. Sociologists and anthropologists believe that culture passes on from one generation to another by learning rather than through biological inheritance. Political scientists see political culture as a pattern of orientations towards political objects such as parties, governments, the constitution, etc., expressed in beliefs, symbols and values. The attitudes, beliefs and values which underpin the operation of a particular political system that can be seen as knowledge and skills about the operation of political system, positive and negative emotional feelings towards it and evaluative judgments about the system. Particular, regional, ethnic or other groups within a political system with their own distinctive sets of values, attitudes and beliefs are referred to as subcultures. Political culture and its explanations can assist the understanding of how reactions of political events and developments may vary in different societies, while the analysis of subcultures remains important in understanding tensions and cleavages within particular societies. There are different types of political cultures in different political systems and societies, which reflect the psychological and subjective orientation of people towards their national systems. Political thinkers through the ages have acknowledged the importance of attitudes, values and beliefs. However, these past thinkers did not see them as a part of political culture. Burke, for instance, wrote about custom and tradition, Marx about ideology, and Herder about national spirit. All of them nevertheless agreed about the vital role that values and beliefs play in promoting the stability and survival of a regime. Interest amongst political scientists in the idea of political culture emerged in the 1950s and 1960s as new techniques of behavioral analysis displaced more traditional institutional approach to the subject. Almond coined the term political culture in 1956. He, however, acknowledged that this conception of political culture was inspired from Weber and Parsons' tradition of social theory. Dear students, let us discuss the definitions of political culture. A political culture is a set of attitudes and practices held by people that shapes their political behavior. It includes moral judgments, political myths, beliefs, and ideas about what makes for a good society. A political culture is a reflection of a government, but it also incorporates elements of history and tradition that may predate the current regimes. Political cultures shape political perceptions and actions of the people. Almond and Weber defined political culture as the pattern of orientations to political objects among the members of the nation. They pointed out that every political system is entrenched in specific form of political action which indicates whether the system is consensual or polarized. Roy McCready defines political culture as the commonly shared goals and commonly accepted rules. According to Simon Baer, components of the culture and values, beliefs, and emotional attitudes about how a government ought to be conducted and what it should do have made the concept crucial to the analysis of a given political system. Elmond and Powell holds that political culture is the pattern of individual attitudes and orientations towards politics among the members of political system. For S.E. Feiner, political cultures relates largely to the legitimacy of rulers and political institutions, including procedures. According to Lucian Pye, political culture is shaped by general historical experiences of a country as also by the private and personal experiences of the individuals. It is because first becomes the members of the society and then of the polity. To him, political culture can be found only in men's minds, in the patterns of action, feeling, and reflections which they have internalized and made part their very existence. Lucian Pye has made various aspects of political culture the cornerstone of political development in the new states. For Pye, the indicators of nations' political culture are the scope of politics, correlation between ends and means, norms for the evaluation of political action, and the predominant values of political action. The above definitions make it evident that political culture is a shorthand expression to denote the emotional and attitudinal environment within which the political system operates. It is subjective realm which underlines and gives meaning to the political actions. One cannot deny the importance of political events like elections, party competition, pressure groups, changing social bases of elite, governmental performance and its stability. Also, we cannot ignore the individual or group behavior of the institutions. But political culture concerns itself only with the meanings, significance, and the interpretations that the individual attaches to these events and structures. That's what forms the political culture. Merely the existence of the institution of election does not mean everything. We have to see as to what is the attitude of people towards elections. In simple words, political culture is an interaction between the beliefs, events, and structures of the polity. For instance, in England, bureaucracy is held in high esteem, but in India, particularly during British days, it was regarded as alien, untrustworthy, and partial. As Robert Ward says that many Japanese take part in elections not of their belief to do so, but only out of social pressures. It must be borne in mind that it is on the basis of belief, wisdom, and knowledge that politics becomes meaningful and predictable. Political culture in this way determines the scope of political activity. Since political culture consists of beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that are formed out of understanding of politics, it determines how people become involved in politics. Thus, political culture makes a critical evaluation of the standards of political conduct. Condition and standard of politics in a country can be known from having a view of its political culture. From this angle, political culture is a regulatory system that controls political interactions and behaviors in every country. It also regulates who talks whom and how. There are several examples to show that the constitution of a country did not suit the people of that country. This happens when the constitution of the country does not coincide with the political culture of that country. The interwar period Weimar Constitution of Germany failed because it did not coincide with the political culture of that country. Now students, let us discuss political cultural orientations. Political culture thus includes those orientations, attitudes, values, and beliefs which help an individual to relate himself to the political system. Almond and Verba wrote about the constituent elements of such orientations as under. First one is cognitive orientations. These orientations refer to the knowledge of people, accurate or otherwise, of political objects and beliefs. This orientation differs from one person to person. One may have relatively high degree of accurate knowledge about the working of his political system, and somebody can be ignorant and thus have very limited contacts with the political system. In developing countries like India, majority of people are more or less ignorant as to how the country is run, about the roles, political figures, and other institutions. All this shapes the political culture of a nation. Second one is affective orientations. These refer to the emotional feelings of the people towards their political system. These orientations relate to the standard of criteria with the help of which the people judge their political system. It helps the people to develop the feeling of attachment, involvement, rejection, and the like towards the political system. Third one is evaluative orientations. This involves making judgments and opinions about political objects. It includes values, information, and feelings. These judgments or opinions usually involve applying value standards to the political objects and events. Perhaps one's democratic norms may lead him to evaluate the system as not sufficiently responsive to political demands, or his ethical norms may lead him to condemn the level of corruption and nepotism. It must be borne in the mind that these orientations are interrelated and may be combined in a variety of ways, even within the same individual. The kinds of orientations which exist in a population will have a significant influence on the ways in which the political system works. According to Elmond, I quote, every political system is embedded in a particular pattern of orientations to political action. Political culture thus touches several levels of human awareness and sensitivity. Political culture orientations can thus be examined with reference to the political system as a whole, its input objects, its output objects, and self as an object. In this way, we can safely conclude that a nation's political culture includes its citizens' orientations at three levels: the political system, the political and policy-making processes, and policy output and outcomes. The system level involves how people view the values and organizations that comprise the political system. Do citizens identify the nation and accept the general system of government? The process level includes the expectations of how politics should function and individuals' relationship to the political process. The policy level deals with the public policy orientations for the government. What should be the policy goals of government and how are they to be achieved? The system level orientations towards the political system are important because they tap basic commitments to the polity and the nation. It's difficult for any political system to endure if it lacks the support of its citizens. Feeling of national pride seems strongest in nations with a long history that has emphasized feelings of patriotism. The USA is a prime example. In contrast, national pride is low in Germany and Japan, two nations that have avoided nationalist sentiments in reaction to the World War II regimes and their excesses. Similarly, legitimacy is another foundation of successful political system. When people feel that they ought to obey the laws, the legitimacy is high, and if they see no reason to obey or if they comply only out of fear, the legitimacy is low. The process level orientation of political culture involves what the public expects of the political process and what is expected of citizens by the political system. Here, three different patterns describe the citizens' role in the political process as participants, subjects, and parochials. At policy level, people think what is the expected and appropriate role of government, and it also involves specific issue demands. Now, dear students, there are different types of political cultures. Let's discuss them. Elmond and Verba has listed three types of political cultures. First one, parochial political culture. We can classify parochial those people who have little or no awareness of national political system, who have no inclination to participate in input processes and are not aware about the output processes. They may be illiterates, rural people living in remote areas, or simply people who ignore politics and its impact on their lives. In modern industrial democracies, the number of such people is small, and in traditional societies, their number can be more. In some transnational societies, large regional groups of parochials may be found in certain areas not yet affected by national polity. African tribes and Eskimos fall in this category. Second is subject political culture. In this type fall those individuals who are oriented to the political system and are aware of various governmental roles, may consider government good or bad, legitimate or illegitimate, but passively obey its officials and the law. They do not vote or actively involve themselves in politics. It's because they have no clear knowledge of the ways in which they can influence the political system. Third one is participant political culture. In this type fall those individuals who are very much aware of structures and processes of political system. They are or have the potential to be involved in the political processes. They are informed about politics and make demands on the polity, granting their support to political leaders based on performance. They develop a set of specific attitudes towards the political system such as parties and interest groups and towards the role they can play in these structures. It's not that we have to treat political culture as though it were the same throughout the entire population of a political system. In fact, this is not so. Some sections of population may develop a participatory culture, while others may still remain subject or parochial. This may be caused due to differences in education, ethnic membership, geographical location, socio-economic conditions, and religious faith. In a hypothetical modern industrial democracy, majority are participants. In such system, there is enough political competition among political parties and sizable voter turnout as well as a critical audience to debate on public issues. At the same time, not all citizens feel the need to be active in or concerned about the political system. In an authoritarian industrial society, such as the former communist nations of Eastern Europe, a small minority of citizens are involved in one-party system, which penetrates and oversees the society as well as decides governmental policies. Most other citizens are mobilized as subjects by political institutions like political parties, the bureaucracy, and the government-controlled mass media. People are encouraged and even forced to cast a symbolic vote of support in election and to pay taxes, obey regulations, and follow dictates of government. Some authoritarian societies like China and Iran are partly traditional and partly modern. In such systems, in spite of an authoritarianism, some participants like students and intellectuals, for example, oppose the system and try to change it by persuasion or acts of protests. Most people in such systems are passive subjects, aware of government and complying with the law, but not involved in public affairs. Parochials like poor and illiterate, urban dwellers, peasants, etc. have limited contact with the political system. In democratic pre-industrial society like Nigeria, which has predominantly rural illiterate population, very few people are participants who are chiefly educated professionals, business people, and landowners. The large group of people are illiterate peasants. Their knowledge and involvement with national politics is minimal. Such societies face significant challenge to create more aware public that can participate more meaningfully and shape government policies through democratic means. It's true to a large extent for India as well, given its more illiterate population in rural areas. These types of political cultures reflected the psychological and subjective orientations of people towards their national system. The pioneer comparative effort to construct a theory of political culture was Gabriel Elman and Sidney Verba's Civic Culture, which was based on a survey of the attitude of citizens towards their nation in the United States, Great Britain, Germany, France, Italy, and Mexico. Now let us discuss civic culture. It's a set of specific attitudes which are crucial to the success of modern democracies. This work of Elmond and Verba was stimulated in part by a desire to explain the collapse of representative government in interwar in Italy, Germany, and elsewhere, and the failure of democracy in many newly independent developing states after 1945. Although Elmond and Verba accepted that a participant culture came closest to the democratic ideal, they argued that a civic culture is a blend of all three in that it reconciles the participation of citizens in the political process with the vital necessity for government to govern. Democratic stability, in their view, is underpinned by a political culture that's characterized by a blend of activity and passivity on the part of citizens and a balance between obligation and performance on the part of government. In their initial study, Elmond and Verba concluded that UK came closest to the civic culture, exhibiting both participant and subject features. In other words, while the British thought they could influence government, they were also willing to obey authority. The USA also scored highly, its relative weakness being that as participant attitudes predominated over subject ones. Americans were not particularly law-abiding. The difficulty of building or rebuilding a civic culture was underlined by the examples of both West Germany and Italy. By the early 1960s, neither country appeared to have a strong participant culture, while the subject culture was dominant in Germany. Parochial attitudes remained firmly entrenched in Italy. Elmond and Verba's later study highlighted a number of shifts, notably declining national pride and confidence in the UK and the USA, which contrasted with the rise in civic propensities in Germany. The civic culture approach to the study of political attitudes and values has, however, been widely criticized. In the first place, its model of the psychological dispositions that make for a stable democracy is highly questionable. In particular, the emphasis on passivity and the recognition that deference to the authority is healthy as has been criticized by those who argue that political participation is very stuff of democratic government. Elmond and Verba suggested a sleeping dogs theory of democratic culture. That implies that low participation indicates broad satisfaction with government, which politicians in turn will be anxious to maintain. On the other hand, when less than half of the adult population bothers to vote, as regularly occurs in the USA, this could simply reflect widespread alienation and ingrained disadvantage. Second, the civic culture thesis rests on the unproven assumption that political attitudes and values shape behavior and not the other way around. In short, a civic culture may be more a consequence of democracy than its cause. If this is the case, political culture may provide an index of the health of democracy, but it cannot be seen as a means of promoting stable democratic rule. Finally, Elmond and Verba's approach tends to treat political cultures as homogeneous, that is, as little more than a cipher for national culture or national character. In doing so, it pays little attention to political subcultures and tends to disguise fragmentation and social conflict. In contrast, radical approaches to political culture tend to highlight the significance of social divisions, such as those based on class, race, and gender. A very different view of role and nature of political culture has been developed within the Marxist tradition. Although Marx portrayed capitalism as a system of class exploitation and oppression operating through the ownership of the means of production, he also acknowledged the power of ideas, values, and beliefs. As Marx and Engels put it in the German ideology, the ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas. That is, the class which is the ruling material force of society is at the same time the ruling intellectual force. In Marx's views, ideas and culture are a part of superstructure, that is, conditioned or determined by the economic base, the mode of production. Dear students, it can be concluded that there is normally a relationship between political culture and political structures. Political culture not only shapes the structure of political system but also influences the style of politics and the content of policy making. Moreover, the study about political culture suggests that cultural factors such as social trust and engagement influence the efficiency and effectiveness of government. Political culture may help build a national community, but it may also provide a basis of division. When political subcultures coincide with ethnic, linguistic, or religious differences, the division can be enduring and threatening. This was all about today's lecture. I hope you all have enjoyed. Thanks for watching.